Okay, so I want to try a little thought experiment to kick things off today. I want you to imagine for a second that I have parked a vehicle right out front.
Yeah.
It could be a DeLorean, it could be a TARDIS, whatever your pop culture reference of choice is. The engine is humming, assuming, I guess, time machines hum, and we are going to take a trip back to 1975.
I am already picturing the aesthetics. A lot of beige, a lot of very questionable polyester
Oh,
choices,
for sure.
and probably a lot of cigarette smoke indoors.
Oh, absolutely. The fashion is a hazard in itself, you're right.
Mm.
But let's try and look past the leisure suits for just a second. We step out of the machine, we're walking down a busy street in a major city, let's say it's New York, maybe London. I want you to tell me, what is the first thing you notice? Or maybe it's what you don't notice. What's the silence you aren't used to hearing?
Well, if we are looking at behavior, nobody is looking down. That is the big one. You don't see that sort of universal hunch that everyone has today. No one is taking a selfie. No one is live streaming their lunch. No one is standing on a corner frantically refreshing an app to see where their driver is.
Mm-hmm.
Digitally speaking, it is a complete vacuum.
It's almost hard to properly visualize, isn't it?
Mm.
I mean, if you're walking down that street in 1975 and you suddenly remember you need to tell your spouse you'll be late for dinner,
What do?
you can't just tap a screen. You have to physically hunt for a phone booth. You have to hope you have a dime or a quarter in your pocket. You have to dial a number from memory or look it up in a book that's chained to the wall.
Uh-huh.
And then you have to hope they are actually home to answer the phone.
And if they aren't home,
You don't tell them.
you just show up late.
Yeah, you just show up late. The expectation of constant contact,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't exist.
Right. And if you wanted to send a message overseas, you weren't firing off a quick text on WhatsApp.
Not at all.
You're sitting down at a desk, taking out a pen and a piece of paper, writing a letter, putting a stamp on it, and then waiting weeks, I mean literally weeks, for a reply.
It sounds almost meditative by today's standards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just the pace of it. But let's push this a bit further into the workplace because I think this is where the contrast really just breaks my brain. You walk into an office in 1975. What's the vibe?
Wow, it's tactile. That is the word I'd use. You have typewriters clacking away, the smell of mimeograph ink, physical paper files being carted around on these little trolleys. But the biggest difference isn't the furniture or even the technology, it's the clock.
The hard stop.
Exactly. When that clock hits 5:00 p.m., the office doesn't just quiet down. It, for all intents and purposes, ceases to exist for you. The shops close. The switchboard shuts off. When people go home, they're actually home.
That is the part that feels like a fantasy novel now. It really does. There was no work-life balance conversation because the separation was physical. It was built in.
Right. You didn't have to have willpower to not check your email at dinner because your email was, in effect, in a physical file cabinet in a building 10 miles away. You were disconnected by default.
So, okay, we get back in the time machine. We watch the decades blur by. The 80s, they bring the personal computer. The 90s bring the World Wide Web. And then we hit 1995.
A pivotal year. A huge one. Amazon launches. And this is the moment we really start to shift into the age of everything, everywhere, all at once. E-commerce begins its takeover.
And then the year that really changed everything. 2007.
The iPhone.
The iPhone drops. And suddenly, the internet isn't a place you go to anymore, like sitting down at a desk. It's a place you are. It's in your pocket, always. And so we arrive at today, the age of abundance.
Which, on paper sounds like a complete utopia. If you told someone from 1975 that you have access to every song ever recorded, every movie ever made, and basically every piece of human knowledge in a little Glaheek rectangle in your pocket.
They'd think we were living in paradise.
Of course they would. But we aren't living in paradise, are we?
No, we're living in anxiety.
We are living in what's called the paradox of choice. This abundance, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword. We have total freedom, but we are paying for it with cognitive exhaustion.
I was looking at the numbers in the source material for this deep dive, and honestly, they made me tired just reading them.
The 35,000 number.
Yeah. The estimate that the average modern adult makes 35,000 decisions every single day.
And let's put some context on that. That is one decision roughly every 2 seconds of your waking life. Now, sure, a lot of those are tiny micro decisions. Do I step left or right here? Do I scroll past this ad? Do I sip my coffee now? But they all draw from the same battery.
And that battery drains fast. The source material for today, which we should mention, is the fantastic book Decisions That Matter by Adrienne Adhami. It highlights what she calls the Netflix problem.
Yeah.
And I think this is maybe the most relatable example of cognitive failure in the modern age.
Oh, we've all been there. You sit down, you've got your dinner on your lap, you turn on the TV to relax after a long day, and what happened?
I scroll. And I scroll. I watch trailers. I look at the top 10 in the U.S. Then I get frustrated. I switch apps. I look at Hulu. I go back to Netflix.
And how long does that take?
Usually until my food is cold. So maybe 15 minutes. Sometimes I just give up and watch an old episode of The Office for the 1000th time.
Well, the data says the average viewer spends 10.5 minutes per day just deciding what to watch.
Per day.
Per day. And if you do the math on that, it's terrifying. That is 63 hours a year.
Oh.
You are spending almost 3 full days of your life every single year just staring at a menu, paralyzed by the fact that there are too many good options.
That's the key, though, isn't it? It's not that the options are bad.
What?
It's that we're terrified of picking the second best option. We're hunting for the unicorn, the perfect choice.
Exactly. We feel this immense pressure to maximize every single moment. If I watch a movie that's just okay, I feel like I've failed because I could have watched a masterpiece instead. That pressure creates what Adhami calls the overwhelm. We're paralyzed trying to find the perfect meal, the perfect partner, the perfect job.
So that is what we're going to try and solve today. We're taking Adrienne Adhami's framework, her toolkit for decision-making, and we're going to learn how to stop staring at the menu and actually, eat the food. And she is the perfect guide for this. She's a well-being coach. She hosts the Power Hour podcast. She advises massive brands. But she starts with a bit of etymology that I found really striking.
Yes, the word decide. It comes from the Latin decidere, which literally means to cut off.
To cut off.
Yes, the root cadere means to cut or to kill. It's the same root as in homicide or insecticide.
That is surprisingly violent. I'm going to commit Italian food side tonight.
But it's a liberating kind of violence. It means that loss is built into the very process of deciding. You can't have it all. To decide is to actively kill off the other options. You cut them away so the one you chose can survive. If you try to keep all your options open, you haven't actually decided anything at all.
Okay, that's a powerful way to frame it. Let's unpack this toolkit then. She calls them the rules of engagement, and she starts with an analogy from Netflix, the company, not the endless scrolling.
Right. Netflix has this famous corporate culture deck, and one of their core rules is no brilliant jerks.
Right.
It's a binary rule. It doesn't matter how smart you are or how much money you make for the company. If you destroy the team dynamic, if you're a jerk, you are out. It's simple. And Adhami argues we need similar hard and fast rules for our own brains to navigate this chaos of 35,000 decisions.
Okay, so let's walk through them. Rule number 1, determine the stakes. And for this, she uses a traffic light system.
This is all about triage. It's about rapid categorization. Because our brains are flawed, we often apply the same amount of mental energy to choosing a sandwich as we do to choosing a mortgage.
I am definitely 100% guilty of that.
I think we all are. So visualize a traffic light. First, you have the red lights.
Stop a car.
Exactly. Hit the brakes. These are the high-stakes decisions. They have high risk, and they have long-term consequences. Having a child, moving to a new country, undergoing major surgery, merging a business.
These are the ones that should keep you up at night. They deserve that level of thought.
Correct. And the rule here is stop. These decisions require what the psychologist Daniel Kahneman would call System 2 thinking. It's slow, it's deliberate, it's analytical. You don't wing a red light decision. You do the research. You consult experts. You take your time.
Okay, that feels pretty intuitive. I think most of us know when we're facing a monster decision like that. But I feel like the trap is really in the other lights.
The trap is definitely in the green lights. Without a doubt, these are no-stakes decisions. Naming a cat, which socks to wear, stirring your coffee clockwise or counterclockwise.
Hold on, I have to push back on the cat thing. Naming a cat feels like it has stakes. You have to yell that name at the vet. You have to live with it for 15 years.
Yeah.
If I name my cat Mr. Fluffy Pants and then he turns out to be a vicious killer, I look like an idiot.
Okay, fair point. Social embarrassment is, I suppose, a stake. But let's look at the impact. Does naming the cat Mr. Fluffy Pants ruin your credit score?
No.
Does it end your marriage?
Hopefully not.
Does it compromise your long-term health?
No, okay, I see your point.
Then it's a green light. And the rule for green lights is just go, do not deliberate, pick one and move on. The problem Adhami identifies is that we treat green light decisions with red light energy. We stand in front of the wardrobe in the morning for 10 minutes, agonizing over the blue shirt or the white shirt.
And that's 10 minutes of glucose just burned on nothing.
Exactly. You are burning your finite decision fuel on something that genuinely, truly doesn't matter. So when you get to work and you have to make a real decision, a red light strategic call, your tank is already running low. You're already fatigued.
So the strategy then is to automate the green lights as much as possible. This is why you see people like Steve Jobs or Barack Obama wearing a uniform.
Right, precisely. Obama famously wore only gray or blue suits. And he explicitly said, I don't want to make decisions about what I'm eating or wearing because I have too many other decisions to make. He was manually turning those green lights off so he could focus all of his energy on the red ones.
Okay, but there is that sneaky category in the middle, the amber lights.
Yes, low stakes, but not zero stakes. Buying a new winter coat, choosing a restaurant for an anniversary dinner. If you get it wrong, it's annoying. You might be cold or you might have a bad meal. But you will survive. The rule here is pause, check, resume. Give it 5 minutes of thought, not 5 days.
But Atami adds a really crucial nuance here that I think is maybe the most important part of this whole section. It's about how these lights can change color. Specifically, how a little green light can turn into a big red one.
The compound effect. This is where people get tripped up. Let's take breakfast. Choosing to eat a chocolate croissant one morning. That is a green light decision, totally. Low stakes, one croissant won't kill you.
Right. It's delicious. No consequences. Go for it.
But what happens if you make that same green light decision every single day for 10 years?
Uh-oh.
Suddenly you are dealing with heart disease, diabetes, or obesity. The repetition transforms the decision from no stakes to life-threatening.
So our habits are essentially just a stack of green light decisions that eventually build up into red light reality.
That's a perfect way to put it. And Atami suggests you have to catch that early. You have to look at your recurring low-stakes choices and ask yourself, if I repeat this 5,000 times, do I like the result? And if the answer is no, you need to start treating it like a red light decision now in order to break the pattern.
That is a great way to sort of audit your own life. Okay, let's move on to rule 2. Call time. It's all about the science of timing. And this one really resonated with me because I am a chronic drifter. I don't decide no, I wait until the option expires on its own.
Ah, the someday trap. Adhami shares the story of the procrastinating teacher. This friend of hers, he's written these amazing children's books. They're just sitting in a drawer, and he keeps saying, I'll look into publishing when things settle down.
Which is, of course, code for never.
Yeah.
Because things never, ever settle down.
Right, so the rule call time is a specific mechanism to stop that drift. And the instruction is really specific. Set a deadline for the decision, not for the action.
Can you distinguish those for me? That sounds like a subtle difference.
Okay, let's say you're thinking about getting a tattoo. The action is sitting in the chair and actually getting inked. The decision is just saying, yes, I am going to do this. Most people spend years in this gray zone of, maybe I'll get a tattoo someday. It takes up mental RAM. It's an open loop in your brain. Calling time means you look at your calendar and you say, by Friday at 4 p.m., I will decide yes or no.
And if the answer is no, you let it go. You kill the option. You cut it off.
And you free up that mental RAM for other things. But there's a biological trick here, too. It's not just about setting a time. It's about what time you pick.
Okay, this brings us to the biology of the brain. Adhami cites a study from the journal Cognition that I found absolutely terrifying.
The parole judge study. This is a cornerstone of behavioral economics. It's a famous one. So researchers analyzed over 1,000 parole hearings. Now, you would assume, that a judge decides your fate based on the law, the crime, your behavior.
Ideally, yes. Justice is blind and all that.
Well, it turns out justice isn't blind, justice is hungry. The study found that if your hearing was scheduled early in the morning, say around 8:00 or 9:40 a.m., you had a roughly 70% chance of being granted parole. But if your hearing was at 11:45 a.m., right before the judge's lunch break,
It's a drop.
your chances plummeted to nearly 10%.
10 from 70.
Yes. And then right after lunch, back up to 65%. And then late in the afternoon, as they got tired again, back down to 10%.
That is horrifying. You're telling me that a person's freedom literally depends on the judge's blood sugar level.
It depends on decision fatigue. Here's the mechanics of it. The brain uses glucose as fuel for willpower. Every time you make a choice, no, I won't check my phone, yes, I will listen to this witness, you burn a little bit of that fuel. When the tank gets low, the brain switches to a kind of safety mode. It defaults to the status quo, the easiest option. For a judge, granting parole is risky. It takes mental energy to justify letting a prisoner out. Denying parole is safe. It keeps things as they are, so when the brain is tired, it just hits the deny button because it's the path of least resistance.
So the actual advice here isn't just make a schedule, it's protect your peak hours. Treat them like a sacred resource.
Exactly. The study suggests our peak decision-making window is roughly 8:00 a.m. to 1:00 p.m. So if you are trying to make a red light decision like, should we sell the house, do not do it at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday after a long, exhausting day of work. You are biologically incapable of making your best choice at that hour.
You're in parole denial mode.
You are. You're going to just choose whatever is easiest, not what is best. So rule 2 is, set a deadline, but make sure that deadline lands squarely in your peak cognitive window.
I love that. It's so practical. Okay, rule 3. Make it simple. This is for when you are stuck in analysis paralysis. The scenario Adhami paints is the olive oil dilemma.
Oh, the supermarket paralysis. We've all been there. You walk into a shop, you just need a bottle of olive oil. If there are 2 bottles on the shelf, one is $5, one is $20, it's an easy decision. You decide based on your budget. But if there are 30 bottles, virgin, extra virgin, cold pressed, Greek, Italian, organic, infused with garlic,
I usually just freeze and buy the one with the prettiest label.
which is a coping mechanism, or you can consider the IKEA argument, couples having a meltdown fighting over lamps. Do we want the brushed steel or the matte black or the floor lamp versus the table lamp? There are just too many variables.
So what's the fix? Adhami suggests a specific tool here, which she calls the process of elimination.
It's basically like a sports tournament bracket for your decisions. Let's play this out. Let's say you're picking a holiday destination. You're stressed because you have 5 great options: Prague, Ibiza, Cornwall, Rome, and skiing in France.
Okay, I'm with you.
Don't look at them all at once. That
Yeah.
is too much data for your brain to handle. Just pick 2. Only 2. Prague versus Cornwall.
Okay, Prague versus Cornwall. I'm going to say Prague.
Why?
I want a city break. I don't want to rely on the notoriously unreliable British weather.
Done. Cornwall's dead. It has been cut off. You never have to think about it again. Now it's the winner, Prague versus the next challenger, Prague versus Ibiza.
Prague again. I think I'm too old and tired for a rave.
Ibiza is dead. Now Prague versus Rome.
Ooh, that's a tougher one. Both amazing cities, but I think Rome, the food is better.
Okay, Prague is dead. Rome is the winner. Final round. Rome versus skiing in France.
Rome. I don't want to be cold.
And there you have it. You're going to Rome. By turning a really complex 5-way decision into a series of simple binary one-on-one matches, you bypass the paralysis. You kill off the options one by one rather than trying to juggle 5 balls in the air at once.
That is brutal, but it is so effective. It forces you to isolate your preferences. Okay, rule 4. Send for help.
This is about moving from crowdsourcing your problems to using the wisdom of the tribe. And there's a very big difference between the two. Crowdsourcing is asking 500 strangers on Facebook what they think you should do with your life.
Which is 9 times out of 10 a disaster.
It is noise. It's just a cacophony of opinions. Wisdom of the tribe is asking the right people. Adhami references Kim Scott's concept of radical candor. You don't want cheerleaders. You want people who care about you enough to tell you the hard truth, even if it hurts a little. You need the friend who says, that business idea has a major flaw in it, not just the one who says, you go, girl.
But there's a really important caution here about who you ask. She has this great line, don't take financial advice from a billionaire if you only have £10,000 to invest.
It sounds counterintuitive, right? Shouldn't you ask the richest person you can find? But their reality is so far removed from yours that their advice is almost useless. A billionaire can risk losing $1 million on a whim. For them, it's a rounding error. But if you lose your £10,000, you are ruined. Their advice will always be based on their risk tolerance, not yours. You need advice from someone who understands your context.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Rule 5. Take no further action. Now, this one sounds suspiciously like just being lazy.
And it's the opposite. Inaction is laziness. Taking no further action is a strategic choice. It is an active decision to do nothing. Sometimes, especially in a conflict, the best possible move is silence.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. You get an angry email from a colleague. Your blood boils. Your instinct, your System 1 brain, is to fire back a nasty reply immediately. The take no further action rule says, decide to wait. Decide that the best outcome will come from letting the fire burn out on its own. You are actively choosing to withhold fuel from the fire. That isn't weakness. That's control.
It's the power of the pause.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, rule 6. Trust your gut.
Intuition. Now, Scientifically, this is a really interesting area. We often think of a gut feeling as mystical or magical, but it's not. It's actually just pattern recognition. Adhami references Daniel Kahneman again here.
So break down the System 1 versus System 2 thing again in this context.
Okay, think about driving. When you are driving to work on a clear, sunny day, you are in System 1. It's automatic. You don't consciously think about the turn signals or the pressure on the pedal, you just do it. Your brain is processing thousands of data points on autopilot. System 2 is when you are driving in a blizzard. You're leaning forward, the radio is off, you are hyper aware of every single slide or sound. Trusting your gut is often just your System 1 recognizing a pattern that your System 2 hasn't articulated yet.
Like the red flag feeling you get about a person sometime.
Exactly. You might meet someone and just feel uneasy. You can't explain why. But your System 1 brain has noticed microexpressions, a certain tone of voice or body language that matches a danger pattern from your past experiences. Your gut isn't magic, it's a database. Adhami says we should listen to that data even if we can't write a thesis on it yet.
Okay, so that is the toolkit.
Yeah.
The 6 rules of engagement. But the book goes a lot deeper than just mechanics. Section 2 is about values. She calls them the compass. And she starts with a movie reference that hits me right in the nostalgia, The Mighty Ducks.
A classic. Quack, quack, quack.
Yes. And there's that scene where Charlie, the main kid, has a chance to help his team win by faking an injury. The coach, Gordon Bombay, tells him to cheat. And Charlie, who is, 12 years old? He refuses. He takes the high road. He gives up the easy win for his integrity.
It's a great lesson in values, but what Adhami is getting at is that values aren't just these fluffy words we put on a corporate website. They are the tiebreakers in our decision-making. When you have 2 good options, your values are what tell you which one is truly yours.
But how do we know what our values actually are? I feel like most people would say, oh, I value honesty and I value family, but then they're working 80 hours a week and lying to their spouse about how much they spent on new golf clubs.
That is the crucial difference between aspirational values, who we say we want to be, and actual values, who our actions show we are. Adhami suggests a reverse engineering exercise that can be a little bit painful, she says. Look at your calendar and look at your bank statement.
Follow the money and the time.
Exactly. How you spend your 2 most precious resources, your time and your money, reveals what you actually value, not what you say you value. If you say you value health, but you spend $0 on fitness and 0 hours exercising, but you spend $200 a month on streaming services and 40 hours watching TV, well, you don't really value health. You value comfort and entertainment.
Ouch. Yeah, that hits a little close to home.
It's supposed to. It's an audit. She also suggests looking at who you admire versus who you dislike. If you really despise people who are flashy and loud, maybe you value humility. If you admire people who take big, bold risks, maybe you value adventure. It's another way to sort of triangulate your own moral code.
She also brings up this idea of inherited values, this concept of cultural DNA.
This is huge. Are your values actually yours? Or are they your parents? Maybe your parents grew up without money, so for them the highest value was security, so they pushed you to be an accountant. But maybe you value adventure and risk. If you are living your life by their values, you are going to feel a constant friction, a sense of wrongness in all your decisions. You have to separate your own DNA from your cultural DNA.
That friction is so real.
Yeah.
And then there's the conflict between urgent versus important.
Marketing thrives on creating urgency. Sale ends tonight. Only 2 seats left at this price. That is urgency. It triggers a panic response in your brain. But is it important? Does buying that cheap flight to a place you don't really want to go actually align with your value of financial stability or your value of meaningful travel? Usually urgent things are designed to displace the important things.
She also touches on privilege here, and she handles it in a really nuanced and useful way. She defines privilege as a safety net.
Yes, and this is so crucial for understanding decision-making. It is so much easier to take risks, to start a startup, to pursue a career in the arts, to travel the world, when you know that if you fall, you won't hit the concrete. You have a safety net. Maybe that net is a trust fund, or maybe it's just parents who have a guest room you can crash in if it all goes wrong. Adhami shares her own story. She left home when she was 16. She didn't have a safety net, so her decision-making was naturally more conservative, more survival-based.
It completely changes the calculus of risk.
Completely. If you have a safety net, you can afford to treat a red light risk like it's an amber light. If you don't have that net, every single risk feels like a red light. Acknowledging that privilege helps you understand why you make the choices you make, and maybe why others in your life make very different ones.
Let's shift gears to section 3. Joy. She calls it the missing ingredient.
I love her metaphor here. She says joy is like cooking with salt. You can eat food without any salt. It will sustain you. You will survive. But it's going to be bland and joyless. Joy is the flavor that makes life not just survivable, but actually edible.
But we have this busyness trap. I feel this constantly. If I'm just sitting on the couch reading a book for fun, I feel guilty. I feel like I should be productive, like I should be listening to a podcast about productivity while I read.
Yes, we have been conditioned to believe that joy is a reward you get for being productive, not a necessary part of a healthy life. We think we have to earn our rest. But biologically, this is complete nonsense. Adhami dives into the neurochemistry here. She talks about dopamine and serotonin. Joy isn't just fun, it's biological maintenance. When you exercise, for example, it's not just about your abs. It regulates dopamine long term. If you cut out joy, you are chemically depressing your own system.
And we are fighting against our own biology here too, aren't we? The negative bias.
Right. Evolutionarily, your brain is not designed to keep you happy. It is designed to keep you safe. Its primary job is to spot the tiger hiding in the bushes, so it is constantly scanning for negatives, for threats. In the modern world, there are no tigers. But there is the news. There is social media. We doom scroll because our brains are hardwired to fixate on the danger.
And marketers know this. She talks about the 3-second rule.
In social media marketing, you have 3 seconds to hook someone's attention. So you use shock or fear or extreme beauty. The problem is we start applying this 3-second rule to our actual lives. We judge a potential partner on an app like Tinder in 3 seconds, swipe left. We judge a job opportunity in 3 seconds. We are training our brains to make these snap judgments based on really surface-level data, which kills the nuance that's needed for deep, lasting joy.
So how do we fight back against all this? She has a really practical tool called the Joyful Spending Allowance, or the JSA.
This is great. It's basically a permission slip for happiness. You set aside a specific pot of money. Maybe it's 10% of your income. Maybe it's just $50 a month. And the rule is this money must be spent on something that brings you pure joy, and you are absolutely forbidden from feeling guilty about it.
The distinction between joyful spending and impulse buying is key, though, right?
It's crucial. Impulse buying is a quick dopamine hit. You buy the gadget, you feel a buzz for 5 minutes, and then you regret it. Joyful spending is deliberate. It's buying the concert tickets because you love live music. It's buying the really good coffee beans because that ritual makes your morning better. It's a conscious investment in your own happiness.
I'm setting up a JSA account today. I'm actually serious.
Good.
Okay. Section 4. Success. She tells the story of the fisherman and the businessman. I've heard this parable before, but it always lands with me.
It's a classic for a reason. You have a businessman on vacation. He sees a fisherman relaxing on his boat, playing his guitar, enjoying the sunset with his family. The businessman goes up to him and says, "You should work harder. You could buy a bigger boat, then a whole fleet of boats. You could make millions."
Yeah.
And the fisherman asks him, "And then what would I do?" The businessman says, "Then you can retire. You can relax, play your guitar, and enjoy the sunset." And the fisherman just smiles and says, "What do you think I am doing right now?"
It's the ultimate check your ladder moment, making sure your ladder is leaning against the right wall before you start climbing.
It perfectly illustrates the subjectivity of success. The businessman's definition was growth and scale. The fisherman's was contentment and time. Neither is wrong, but if the fisherman had listened to the businessman, he'd waste his entire life chasing something he already had.
She also talks about the hedonic treadmill.
Ah, yes. This is the psychological phenomenon where we think, once I get that promotion, I'll finally be happy. Then you get the promotion, and you are happy for maybe a week. Then you return to your baseline level of happiness, and you start thinking, okay, once I get the next promotion, then I'll be happy. We adapt to success very, very quickly. It's a hamster wheel. If you anchor all of your decision-making solely on some future success, you never actually arrive.
So we need to look at seasons of success. This is a concept I really, really like.
This is such a forgiving and realistic way to look at life. Adhami says we go through different seasons. There's a season of change. This is transition, a new job, a new city. Success in this season is just about adaptability. Then there's a season of challenge. This is survival mode. A new baby, an illness in the family, grief. Success here isn't crushing it at work. It's just keeping your head above water. And then there's growth. This is the harvest. Things are going well. This is when you can push. The mistake we make is trying to be in growth mode when we are actually in challenge mode.
That is so true. Trying to be the CEO of the year when you have a newborn at home is just a recipe for disaster and burnout. She also has the 80% rule for the perfectionists among us.
Adhami argues that if you hit 80% of your goals, say you do 80% of your planned training runs for a marathon, That is a pass. Consistently hitting 80% beats hitting 100% for a week and then burning out and doing nothing for the next 3. Good enough, done consistently, is better than perfect, done sporadically.
Amen to that. Okay, finally, section 5, impact and the real-world matrix. She talks about the circles of impact, and she starts with the self.
This is the put your own oxygen mask on first principle. You cannot make a positive impact on your family, your work, or your community if you are depleted and running on empty. She talks about self-sabotage. Why do we do things we know are bad for us? It's the constant battle between our present self and our future self. Present self wants the donut and the nap. Future self wants to be fit and finish the book. Self-sabotage is just present self winning too often.
And our environment plays a huge role in which self wins.
Right? A huge role. If you are trying to make a complex red light decision, visualize your ideal environment. It's probably calm, cool, quiet. Now look at your reality. You're in a cluttered kitchen, the kids are screaming, your phone is pinging with notifications. That stress releases cortisol. Cortisol puts you in fight or flight mode.
Okay.
You literally cannot access the higher reasoning parts of your brain. You are biologically incapable of making a good, long-term decision in that state.
So the simple act of cleaning your desk or turning off your phone can actually lead to better life choices.
It can. She also warns against multitasking, specifically this trend of habit stacking gone wrong. Habit stacking, from James Clear, is great floss your teeth while your coffee brews. But she says, don't overdo it. Don't go for a walk in nature while listening to a business podcast at 2 times speed while also checking your emails. That's not efficiency. That's sensory overload. Sometimes single tasking is the most powerful decision tool of all. Just walk. Just be.
I feel very seen right now. I listen to podcasts constantly. Okay, let's get to the final tool, the decision-making matrix. This is for when you really need to get mathematical and unemotional about a big choice. Let's walk through a concrete example.
Okay, let's create a scenario. You've been offered 2 jobs. Job A. It's a big corporate gig, huge salary, a lot of prestige, but the hours are brutal and you've heard the culture is toxic. Job B. It's for a nonprofit or maybe a small startup. The pay is much lower, but the mission is amazing, the people seem great, and the hours are flexible. You're torn. Your heart says Job B, but your wallet says Job A.
Okay, so how do we use the matrix to solve this?
You draw a simple grid. On the left, you list your options, Job A and Job B. Across the top, you have 4 columns: values, joy, success, and impact. Now you just rate each option from 0 to 5 for each of those categories.
Okay, let's score Job A, the corporate one. Values, probably a 2. I don't really care about their product.
Joy, honestly, a 1. A toxic culture sounds absolutely miserable. Success, well, that's a 5. It's money and prestige.
Yeah.
Impact, maybe a 3. It's a big company. It has reach. Okay, so the total score is 2 plus 1 is 3 plus 5 is 8 plus 3 is 11.
Okay, now let's do Job B, the passion project. Values.
A5. It aligns perfectly with what I believe in. A4. A great team and flexibility sounds wonderful.
Success.
That's a 2. The low pay is a definite drawback.
And impact.
A5. I feel like it'd be changing the world. So the total score is 5 plus 4 is 9 plus 2 is 11 plus 5 is 16. So Job B wins 16 to 11. It takes the emotion out of it. It's just math.
But wait, there is a golden rule she adds that changes everything. This is what she calls the power of 0. If any category scores a 0, the answer is an immediate and absolute NO. It's a deal breaker.
So if Job A was so toxic that I score joy as a 0, then the total score doesn't matter. The answer is no. If a job pays millions, so success is a 5, but it requires you to act unethically, so values is a 0, you walk away. The 0 acts as a veto. It prevents you from rationalizing yourself into a miserable situation just because the money is good.
That is such a clear and powerful filter. It forces you to be honest with yourself. We're coming to the end of our deep dive, and I want to talk about the outro concept she brings up, FOBO.
Fear of better options. We live in a world of constant maximization. We think, if I buy this phone, what if a better one comes out next week? If I start dating this person, what if I meet someone better at that party on Friday? FOBO keeps us stuck in the hallway, perpetually afraid to open any single door.
Adhami's final philosophy is really comforting here, I think.
Yeah.
She basically says, there is no perfect choice.
Right. Life is like a rained-out wedding. You can plan everything perfectly, you can make all the right choices, and it still rains. The goal isn't to be a fortune teller who can predict the future. It's to be a decision maker. Remember the definition from the beginning. To decide is to cut off. Make the cut. Embrace the uncertainty. Even if it turns out to be the wrong decision, you will learn far more from making it and moving forward than you will from standing still in paralysis. Regret is just a lesson, not a life sentence.
That is a wonderful place to leave it. The book is Decisions That Matter by Adrienne Adhami. So here is my challenge to you, the listener. Don't try to do all of this at once. That would be overwhelming. Just pick one tool from this conversation to try this week. Maybe it's the traffic light system, just for today. Stop agonizing over the green lights. Maybe it's setting up a JSA, go buy that good coffee, guilt-free. Or maybe it's finally using the matrix for that one big, scary decision you've been putting off.
Just decide. Cut off the noise and trust yourself.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.